Yo, call me a network test the way that is the best. Hey everybody, what's up? Welcome back to the Games Cage. Today, and only today, we are here to talk extensively about my time with Sonic Racing CrossWorlds. That's right, the network test just finished and just went over the weekend. And I got about 20 hours with it. I played a shit ton on stream, off stream, and I think I got a very, very strong sense of the game direction. But obviously, this is just a network test. It's part of the game. And this video is just going to be used as sort of like a feedback, a impressions video. I'm going to go over everything from the polish, controls, the tracks, items, etc. So let's lock in, have a good time sitting here. Make sure to subscribe to your boy here, become a member for that nice extra content you're getting weekly as a member, and support your boy. So let's start. First of all, I want to give just a big shout out to Sonic Team Sega. I feel like having a network test in the first place, to me, inspires confidence, right? Because it tells me that you guys care about the thing you're making and you want, feedback. You want people to test it, know their thoughts on it, because we really don't have that in Sonic games. Every Sonic game that's ever released, racing game at least, that's ever released, just kind of launched, right? They did a trailer to it and they came out. But it seems like with this one, they really want this to be the ultimate racing game, especially with just how incredibly polished it is at this early stage of the game, right? From what we played today, obviously, I want all my tracks and everything. Like, this could have launched, the way this game is today, it could have been how Team Sonic Racing launched. Obviously, there are still some bugs and things they should iron out and they're gonna fix. I've seen a lot of videos of people showing, glitches they've got where they're getting stuck in between ramps, or some of the portals aren't spawning incorrectly. Like, there's obvious stuff that's not working. They probably know that, and obviously those videos are important for them to know and see. And I know they're gonna be doing like a survey after the beta is all done that they're going to send out for people to give feedback. But yeah, there's going to be problems with it and everything. But for what it is right at this stage, it's incredible. I think we are looking at probably one of the most polished and best Sonic experiences just ever in general, right? And this game, for those of you that don't know, is in Unreal Engine 5, which is unprecedented for the series. And oh my God, does it benefit from it, right? Oh my God, does it absolutely benefit. I mean, this game is gorgeous. These are some of the best looking locations I've seen in Sonic. When I was playing this game, it's funny, I was picturing running around these stages. That's how pretty they were, right? I cannot wait to see what Sonic Team has cooking for the next mainline game. If they're understanding, lighting engines like this and understanding how to do proper colors in their areas again, right? Because I feel like, with Frontiers and Shadow Gens, they're not the most colorful games, right? With Frontiers, you have, very basic looking islands, right? With Shadow Gens, you have a lot of areas you've been to before. I guess you could argue maybe Sunset Heights is as colorful as it gets, but it's dark areas, dim areas. Whereas here, it just the colors are boom, popping everywhere. And I miss that sort of feeling, and I want that in the next game. But man, right away, just how you see it, not just that, it runs buttery smooth, it looks beautiful. Even the characters' animations are so nice, and there's so much extra stuff to it. Even right when you play the game, right in the menu, every character has a wheel of emotes, and they do these nice little tricks and emotes, and they're so cute. They're so expressive. I think this is the most expressive the characters have truly been since the 2000s era, with the really old models. It's so cool to see how they're learning these characters, and I really do hope going forward they use Unreal Engine 5, because there's something about the shine the characters have, the look of them, the way they move and animate that is working out for them, and I want them to continue at 1000%. And it just goes down to even all the little stuff, just the way they enter a race and you see unique animation. They even do the thing that in Mario Kart, where when you're queuing up in a lobby to play with people, you all see everybody's car, everybody can spam their emotes, they can do little tricks. It's cute, it's cool, it has soul, it has flavor. You can tell there's a lot more work and effort being put into it. And it's funny, I've seen a lot of people being like, when is it coming out, right? Because it's so polished, right? And my thing is I know they're waiting for Mario Kart. They are 100% probably waiting for Nintendo to reveal the release date of Mario Kart 10 or whatever before they choose when to drop this one. But what good is polish and a good looking car racer if it does not control well, right? Because at the end of the day, any racing game, especially a car racer, lives and dies by how it controls. Now, in this game, there's a lot that goes into your controls and slash how you play, right? That is a big factor. The way you play is going to be monstrously different from each other because they add the whole modifier aspect, right? So before we get to modifiers, I'll talk about the controls. So you have 3 control sets, right? You have, you know, when you're in the base car, right? When you're just riding around the level. You have when you are in the plane sections, and you have the water boat sections. Now, there is also the rider's gear, which is not available in this network test, which it's probably going to be in the next one, right? They're probably still fine-tuning it. Like, the fact that they didn't have it here tells me they're vastly going to change how you play with that gear, because I believe from the PlayStation blog post, they had said that it's going to be, that it's a boost-based gameplay style when it comes to the rider's gear. So hopefully they do something really cool and unique with it. I'm sure it's going to be still in line with what we have in the game, but I can't wait to see what they do with the rider's gear, man. I'm so excited. So base controls feel immaculate to me, right? So you have, you have your drift button, you have your go forward button, like your drive button, and you have, I believe, your tricks, right? On the left stick or whichever stick you're using in the air, you can do tricks, and that's really it, right? They don't go over complicated. There isn't like a crazy amount of moves. That's really it. Now, how those feel is going to, again, vary by which character you're playing, right? You can pick a speed type vehicle, acceleration type, power type, handling type, and those basically, change how fast you're going, your acceleration via boost. If you pick the handling type, it'll like help you do sharper turns, right? Because there's certain like paths you can take in tracks where like sharper turns are necessary to get to them, because if you're going too fast, you're not going to make those sharp turns. And you know what's crazy about this game is you get punished for not doing a sharp turn. I mean, if you bump into a wall, you get hurt. And I'm not sure if I like that, right? There's a lot of times in the game where you're going so fast, you're bumping into walls. And when you bump into a wall, you lose rings, right? And that's another thing about the game is you have a ring factor, kind of like, in Mario Kart where you need the 10 rings, and it gives you just like an up in speed. Obviously, this is Sonic, so you get a lot more rings. You can have up to 100 rings in a race. But it does mean there's a lot of ways to lose those rings, including getting hit by items, which I'll get into the items later. But baseline, how the carts control, I think it's beautiful. I think it's super fun. I love seeing like the drift meter. Like the UI is so cool. I think it's so slick. It's so simple. It's so nice. And just, I love the game feeling arcadey. I think that's the biggest compliment I can give the controls in the game, how it feels, is it feels like I am going to an arcade in one of those cabinets and playing with the wheel like that. And that to me is an incredible compliment. Now, we know that a lot of devs from Initial D, which is a very popular arcade Sega game, are working on this game. And obviously we have Sonic Team. We have a lot of people that have worked on racing stuff within Sega on this. And I can tell because this feels so A-game level. Like the way the drifting feels is just fun. The way the movement feels is good. Like everything just flows incredibly well. It's the most fun I've had in gameplay movement of a car racer since literally Mario Kart 8 came out maybe like 12 years ago. I know the Crash Team Racing game re-release. I've never been a big Crash Team Racing guy just because those games are way much more of a skill check. If you're not like really skilled at Crash Team Racing, you very rarely win a race. Whereas here it still feels like, there's enough chaos and enough skill factor that's simple enough to get into that you could do well. So base controls feel really good. Now, there is the alternate thing. So you go into the plane mode or in the water boat. Now, these are a little weird, right? I got used to them, but there's definitely a weird learning curve to them. So the way it works is like when you're in the plane mode, you no longer have a drift. You kind of have like your drift button turns almost into like a air boost that when you hold it, you're almost stuck to that direction that you chose until you let go. So you can either choose to not get an air boost by holding drift and just moving in the air, like, and having more control, or you can commit to, holding the boost and going into a direction and then getting that boost or, feeding off of it. I think it's one of those weird things. Like, I don't know what's optimal in terms of like getting the drift or boost gauge up in the air. Like, am I supposed to move left and right or up and down? I think it is snaking like left and right, but it's weird. I think that's a problem, right? And even in the boat, when you're in the boat, it can be a bit of a nightmare, right? Because again, the boat follows the same philosophy where you don't have the drift button, you're just moving forward. But when you're in the water, if you hold the drift button, it turns into a boost, right? Where if you hold it, you can then jump in the air and do some tricks if you let go of it, which is very satisfying and fun. But again, because of some of the sharp turns the game has, your brain is sort of wired to want to drift because you're used to drifting. And so when you're not, and you use the air boost and you're moving left and right in the air, you're bumping into shit a lot. So I think they need to work a little bit on how the, waterboard plane works, or whatever. What would you call it? Like a hovercraft? I don't know. Whatever the water controls are, I think need to be fine-tuned a little bit, because I got used to it by the end of it, but I could see how a lot of casual people could get like frustrated or constantly bumping into things into the water, because it's not really explained though. I'm sure the game's gonna have a tutorial to go all over that stuff and help people out. But yeah, I think for the baseline controls of the character, feels fantastic. For the air and the water, I think they could work on it a bit more to maybe make it feel like you have a bit more control. And not just that, your gameplay style is going to vastly vary by your customization. This game's customization is insane, right? So not only do you have, your character types, which every character in the game, well, there's only like 10 in this network test. I think it's like Sonic, Zaz, Knuckles, Shadow, Tails, who else? I don't know why Zaz is in there. Omega, Eggman, a few others. They don't have everybody. So you have the initial characters in the game that have their own unique stats, but then you have your cart stats, right? So the whole thing about the game is you can customize your car, and it is not just aesthetic based. It changes up how that car works. So let's say you pick a speed type car, you're gonna be able to buy different car parts, and it'll modify some aspects of it, like acceleration or power. You can get an acceleration card, modify some things about it. So not only does it modify the look of it, but you can, dude, this thing is extensive. Like, you can modify the colors, you can modify the type of shine the car is, you can literally add stickers to the car. Like, I love how in-depth the customization is, and that's not even with everything. You can see when I'm customizing, there's like 2 or 3 options that are like grayed out. I think it's like you can change your horn. It looks like you'll be able to change your trail color. And the last one, I don't know what it is. It looks like 2 arrows. It might be like a shuffle option if you just want to have like a really random car assortment. And there is one hidden car part, which I think is just going to be the rider's gear as your card option, which makes sense. So you have those options. Now, I honestly ended up using acceleration a lot, right? The acceleration type felt to me like the best, because you have, when you pick acceleration, I feel like you can customize it so that you have a lot of speed, a lot of acceleration, and a decent amount of power, which I think is really, really important in the game. Now, you could go with a handling cart where like that way you can get a lot of the secret paths, because a lot of the tracks, the alternate paths are on really sharp and narrow spots where turning to them is really difficult. So I think people are going to be rewarded by how they choose to play. I didn't really want to mess with power. I feel like with power in this game, now you are bumping into people a lot, but I feel like I've never been like the heavy car kind of person, even in Mario Kart. So I know people use those cars to kind of go fast and so that things don't phase them when they're, moving around. But yeah, I'm not a power guy, but more power to you. And so you have all that, and then you have the modifiers, which are like another tier of things that changes. And this is going to be the biggest difference in how you're going to play the game. So as you play the game, and level up online, rank up, you're going to unlock slots. You can get up to 6 slots unlocked for your modifiers. And like I said, these are vastly different. You're going to be able to get modifiers that make it so that, if you bump into someone, you get a boost. You can get modifiers that make it so that, you get an increased chance of getting attack items. You can get some that increase the chance of earning defense items. You can get ones that give you, a boost upon going on a boost panel. You can get ones that are more ring focused. So like there's one that it lets you carry 200 rings instead of 100 rings. There's some that make it so that when you go on boost panels, you get rings. Like, there is a lot of differences, right? And what's cool about it is you can't just put 6 slots together. Is some are better than others, and so they cost you more slots, right? So for example, one of the big ones you can get is, you can do crazy amount of tricks in the air, which you've seen that clip going around of Sonic doing a million flips. That's one of the modifiers you can get. So if you get that, it makes it so you can increase the amount of tricks you can do, which means when you land, you're going to get a better boost. But that's going to cost you 2 slots, right? But there are some that even cost up to 3 slots, right? And those things are crazy. Like, you have some that add a 4th level of drift, right? Or there's ones that demand a bit of skill on your end, which is like you can get an extra level of drift, but if you tap the drift right when the meter is up, you go even faster. So I love this, right? Because I feel like it makes you want to mix and match what you want to see. Like, for example, for the longest time, I was like, okay, I'm getting in front a lot of the race, but I end up getting hit. So maybe I could put the modifier that makes it so that I spawn more defense items items in the item boxes so I can be, you know, less pervy to attack, whatever, less attacked, right? So I did that. Or again, depending on my character build I'm using, you can again just double down on speed, right? If you're using Sonic and you're going on a speed car, I feel like investing in stuff like drift bonuses or even, you know, ring ups, because rings make you go faster, is going to go a long way. But all this to say that these modifiers, I think at the end of the day, you know, there isn't one that's vastly more broken than others. I know some people are gonna break it. It's funny, this contradicts myself a little bit, because I was kind of just talking about how I would love it for Mario Kart 10 they like lowered the customization, which, to be fair, playing this game, I kind of agree. Like, I do think, like, I prefer modifiers as opposed to the car part changes, because when I'm doing the car part changes, I'm kind of like, all right, this is like, I'm arguing semantics here about losing 0.3 stats versus losing 5 stats here, 2 stats here. Whereas like the modifiers, I feel like they're a visual thing that I can understand. Like, oh, this is vastly changing how I specifically play and changes like my specific way of playing the game, right? So there's that stuff. And like I said, you can change your colors, everything. So all that to say that the controls and movement and gameplay flow are really good, and it's really satisfying, and you can tune it to the way you want to. And I feel like that's something that makes me excited. You know, oftentimes when I play Mario Kart, I'm stuck to one cart, or even, you know, older Sonic games, you just had the cart attributed to your character. But here you can change what cart you use, how it's used, you know, optimize it for that play style and everything. So I really do think for me, the controls, how it feels to play, has been amazing. And that's a big reason why I've been so addicted to it. Is it's just so fun to play and control. And like I said, my criticism for that is the plane controls and the boat controls. I think those could be vastly improved. But of course, once again, another layer, what good are good controls and polish if the tracks themselves you are riding on are not fun? That's right. For this open beta, we have 6 available tracks to us. We have the East Stadium, we have Rainbow Garden, Water Palace, Wonder Museum, Metal Harbor, and Ocean View, as well as the CrossWorlds. Now, the whole gimmick of the game, right, or one of the gimmicks of the game, is that when you go to the second lap of the game, instead of the game just being a traditional 3 laps in the same area, you go to a different dimension. And these are the CrossWorlds. And for this beta, I think they had 5 of them available. I think it was Dino Jungle, Roulette Road, Sky Road, Kraken Bay, and Magma Planet, right? And I think they confirmed that the base game is going to have like 10 plus of them. I think with the tracks, the base tracks of the game, there's going to be 24, which, holy shit, to me, that gets me so unbelievably excited. Because let me tell you, bro, I played this shit like 20 hours, and those 6 mainline tracks, I had so much fun with. Of course, like by the end of it, I was like, all right, I'd want some new tracks. I'm saying this, but man, did I breeze through all that time playing through those tracks. So let's go over them one by one. So East Stadium is essentially, you know, the Mario Kart stadium that, you know, the showcase track of it. And God, I love this level, bro. So colorful, man. I love just how nice and detailed, especially like when you think about like a Team Sonic Racing, how it kind of had just this like regular base arena versus even, you know, Ocean View from the other ones as the baseline one. Like this stadium feels like, you know, very much like colorful, like here's an arena, people watching you guys, you can flex some tricks. It's not too complicated. It is a really, really well made track. It doesn't have too much of a gimmick because, you know, it's the base track in the game, but it's fun to play through, right? There's one area I really like where when you're in the middle of it, there's a middle path you can take and it gets you through this portal ring that puts you ahead of everybody, and everyone is always fighting to try to get to that ring. But I feel like the item slots or item placements are really good in that track, and I think it's just a very well designed track overall. Next one is Rainbow Garden, man. I gotta say, this level just stood out to me visually, especially, right? There's one part of it or 2 parts of it where you're just seeing this like beautiful garden, right, with multiple colors in it, and I think it's like one of my favorite aesthetics I've ever seen in a Sonic game overall. And what's cool about it is when you get to lap 3, because you basically run in the main track for lap 1 and 3, because the middle one is like the modifier, which I'll talk about the CrossWorld tracks after. But yeah, what's cool is when you get to the 3rd lap, the track changes. So like different paths open up, different areas open up, different spots you can go to, and it's a really well-made track. Again, I noticed one thing about a lot of these tracks is they don't go too much into gimmick mode, right? For this level, there's a flying section that's like really nice, you know, really well made, where again, you get a nice view of everything. But besides that, it's mainly just kind of drifts, and it really leads up to that garden part of the end of the level. But I will say, one thing about this track that I think they need to address and change, right, is so when you get towards the end of the track, there's an item box right before the final stretch of the level. And if you don't get that item box, I promise you, you're fucked. Because basically what happens is that you go, you know, jumping on this garden, you're doing a bunch of tricks. There's a grass patch, or you can curve, right? And so if you take that curve, right, unless you get an item to go through the grass, there's at least 10 people right behind you about to slam you with 50 items, and you're fucked. So I feel like they need to add like one more set of item boxes like in front of that row of garden stuff, just so that you're not fully screwed if you didn't pick one up right before it. The next one is Water Palace, right? Our first representation of Sonic Rush in such a long time. But man, again, another visually gorgeous level, right? You get into these, I think this is my favorite in the game, right? You go like, you know, first you're outside the palace, then you're in it. You're seeing almost like a museum type thing. Not a museum, like an aquarium where you're seeing like, you know, fishes and stuff in the background. You get some great turns. There's a boat section that's really fun when you go through this level that has this one really sharp, difficult turn that's brutal, but mastering it is super fun. And like I said, when you get on the third lap, some passing change up. I don't notice too much of a change on this one when you get on lap 3, because besides like some different turns you can do. What's cool about it though is there's one path on the boat side where you can go all the way to the right and try to get this like blue item box. There's like these blue item boxes that guarantee you, I think, a rare item, and that one's always fun to go for, or again, people are bumping into you. But yeah, I think like here's the thing about the track, right? And this applies to all the tracks of the game. They're pretty short, right? I noticed in my time streaming it is no track really goes on for more than 3 minutes, right? They basically all boil down to about 3 minutes. If you're locked in, it's very rare that it takes even longer than that. But I feel like that might be one flaw with the game, but I guess like maybe the different CrossWorlds are going to be longer because they're not going to change how these tracks are, right? And I think they're going, like I said, for a more arcadey feel. They want you in and out of the race, which I also kind of like. Like I felt like I got to do a shit ton of races just because of the track amount. But I will say, right, my favorite level by far in this beta was Wonder Museum. So Wonder Museum is a new, you know, museum level they have where lap 1, you know, you're going through it. There's these like dinosaur statues, everything. There's like a Tails plane and all that, and you're going through, you're drifting. There's some alt paths you can take, but what's so cool about it is when you get to the third lap, everything comes to life, right? So like the skeleton, the bones of the dinosaurs start moving and start chomping around. There's cars moving in the museum. There's like a plane that's now hovering, items all around it. Like things are moving through the museum. So while lap 1 is more static and it's still enjoyable, you get some cool drifts and turns and movements. Lap 3 is really where the track stands out a lot, and I really like the song that plays in it too. So Wonder Museum is 100% a banger track for me. And of course, a Sonic Adventure 2 classic, we have Metal Harbor as a level. And again, really fun level all throughout it, right? You're basically, you know, you're getting some cool turns. You get on a cool alt section in the beginning where you could take a bottom path where you're just driving, or you could take a left path where you end up hovering over. So again, options whether someone is in the air or someone is in the ground, which I really like when the game does that. It feels like everybody's sort of doing their thing in the level, and that's really fun, right? You get some cool turns. And what's cool again about this track is on lap 1, it's standard, you're going through it, there's a left and right path in the middle section of it, you're getting some cool turns. There's like a mega sharp turn you can make at some point to try to get some extra movement, but I think you really need the handling type to land that curve. But what's dope about it is on lap 3, the airship or whatever you got, the rocket from Sonic Adventure 2 goes up in the air. And so not only are you going on an alternate path early in the level, you basically have this new aerial moment in the middle where you're just spamming a shit ton of tricks, and it is really fun. Again, I think the tracks are still really short, so there's not too much going on dynamics wise in the first lap. It's kind of just like, you know, how well it's designed and tracked, but I really do think Metal Harbor is just a really fun track overall. Very well designed, not too many moments where like you get frustrated. And we have Ocean View. This has almost become like the main level in every racing game. I feel like it's in every single one of them. It's almost like their Green Hill Zone of these games. And this one's fun. Nothing too crazy about it. There's, you get the big curve in the beginning, which is really cool. You do get a water section that's really fun, and that, on lap 3 opens up and you can have more movement options in it. You have, those more indoor areas that go through it. There's a lot of alternate paths you can take in this level. It's fun. Ocean View for me is like a standard enjoyable level where it's not too crazy, but it's like a familiar one. And like I said, it's more about the views, the vibes, and how it's done when you go in that boat section. And it's a little short on that end, but besides that, very fun level. And that's it for the main tracks. Now, overall, like I've been saying, I feel like the tracks are super fun. I do think at the end of the day, it's more about how well you play through them and how well they're designed, because they don't go too far into having crazy gimmicks, right? The gimmicks are in fact saved for the middle second lap, which are the CrossWorlds. The game is called Sonic Racing CrossWorlds, and the CrossWorlds are the second lap of the game. So the way it works is whoever's in first place decides between one or two options of which path to take. Sometimes it'll show you which it is. Sometimes it'll have a bunch of question marks. Sometimes it'll have a green exclamation on it, which means a frenzy is going on in that area. So you have let's go over them. So first one we've got is Dino Jungle. Now, Dino Jungle, obviously from Sonic and the Secret Rings, very cool representation. I wish they had a remix of Dino Jungle from Secret Rings, but alas, very cool track. I love this area because like you started off in like a water section, which is super cool, right? And then you get some cool turns. You're literally riding on the dinosaur later in the level, and that's what I mean. Where like the game is so dynamic because like you'll be in a racetrack, right? And it'll be like East Stadium. You start lap 1 is standard, lap 2 you're in Dino Jungle, and that's a full lap of like craziness. There's literally dinosaurs running around it that like are trying to bite you as you're trying to like race under it. You're trying to take left pass, right pass, and everything. And then, right, you have a big moment where you're in the third lap and boom, the lap is completely different. So that's where the dynamicness comes from, truly. It's not just the level itself, it's how it ties into the middle path. So Dino Jungle is a super fun one. You have Roulette Road as another one, which is representation from actually Team Sonic Racing, or even just all the other racing is. I think like Roulette Road has been there before, but really banger music, very fun aesthetic, obviously very colorful, fun. You get all the roulette stuff, you can do a bunch of tricks. It's like this one's more standard. You don't really go flying or anything in it. You're just driving through it, but just a very colorful, enjoyable version to go through. But then you have another one, which is Sky Road, and Sky Road, gorgeous, bro. Gorgeous is one of my favorite probably CrossWorld areas, because you start in this flying section. Again, alternate paths where you can choose between going through aerial rings to get boosts, or you can get through items, right? There's some cool drift. If you have a better kart, you can take like an alternate path that's on the bottom, and if you have good handling, you could probably run down that path. But even just the standard movement flow through it is so good because you're flying through the area, or there's like one section that everybody goes down where you're doing a crazy amount of tricks. It's a very satisfying area in terms of like visuals, how you're playing it, driftability in it. It's so good. And a very chaotic one we have is the Kraken Bay. I think the Kraken Bay one is probably the most dynamic one that's in the game, because you have 3 sections in it. There's a water section you can take. There's a way you can go, there's like a giant boat where these ghosts from SA2 are tossing barrels at you, right? You can take a left or right path. One path takes you through a regular karting area. The other path has drifting and boosting through the water itself. Then you guys go into a big cannon where it goes into a flying section. Flying section has a bunch of alt paths. There's a cannon you can take, or you can just boost through the air. There's these giant like squid tentacles trying to attack you. Like, I think Kraken Bay of all the CrossWorld areas is probably the craziest one to be in, because it has water, air, and land. And then we have Magma Planet. Some people said this area is from Galaxy Force, which is in like an old Sega game, and I really like this one. I think the aesthetics is cool. This one is mainly about flying, right? You're flying through it. There's a little section in the middle where you're in your kart, but even then you can even go to an alt path to continue flying. But really good one. There's these giant magma characters that are like flying through that you're trying to hover around. Just I like areas that, you know, lets you just go and fly around. And this one just super fun in that sense. It's very open too. There's a lot of paths you can take flying. Like there's air upwards paths, downward paths. So I love this one just being a lot more aerial based. And honestly, with these CrossWorlds, like I feel like there's so much variety in how you play them. And what's cool about them too is they have a thing called Frenzy mode. Now, with Frenzy, there's 2 types of Frenzy so far. Maybe there's going to be more in the base game. So the Frenzies they have is, the first Frenzy is basically there's a bunch of boost panels, right? There's like these ring panels that glow purple that if you go through, you boost through it. But they're all laid out throughout the CrossWorlds. So you're going through a shit ton of them. And if you do, you're getting crazy speed. And the other one, which is the one I prefer, is Drift Frenzy. So with this one, right, as soon as you press drift, it charges up to like the 4th level of drifting. And so you could just spam like drift boost, drift boost, drift boost, and you are going crazy fast, right? And obviously it rewards you for, you know, trying to maximize boosting and drifting, and that one is just really fun. I do hope they have a lot more frenzies. You know, I don't see how they can do anything crazy besides maybe some item modifiers or maybe some kind of reward. Maybe like a ring frenzy would be really fun, but I do hope there's more of them in the base game. But I love the idea of these CrossWorlds, and I really do hope in the full game, once we get, you know, more characters and more stuff. Could you imagine when that goes to like Tartarus from Persona 5, or goes to Kamurocho from Yakuza, or even like goes to a monkey ball level? Like I feel like there's so much potential for what they could do for these CrossWorld levels. Let me know which ones you'd love to see in the game, right? Because we know the game is gonna have crossover characters, right? We know even the game kind of shows you a preview of the roster. It shows 28 slots and shows and way more. So it seems like the roster is gonna be pretty extensive from base game and DLC. I think they're hiding a lot more from the game than we know of. Now I've been yapping for a while, and that's because there's a lot to talk about. But another massive thing we must speak of, that is the items, right? So obviously, you know, at the core of a kart racer are the items, you know, and Mario Kart is the founder and father, I think, of kart racer items, because, you know, everything you see to this day in kart racers are all stem from Mario Kart. Your shells, your shields, your lasers, all this stuff. But this game has a shit ton of items, and I will say right off the bat, one of my biggest flaws with this game is the items. Not because they're not fun, but because there is a lot going on there, and I mean a lot going on with these items. So I'm not gonna go over the list of them, you know, in order, but there's a lot. So there's a monster truck, which is effectively your star, that not only, you know, lets you go through grass, but lets you stomp out other opponents, right? There's these punching gloves that are effectively your green and red shells, which you could get a base of or triple up. There's a tornado item that makes it so that it spins around you and items don't hurt you and no one can hurt you. You have the boost, obviously, that you're getting in here. You have a splash that acts as like, you know, the squid from Mario Kart, but instead of just splashing your screen, it slows you down too. You have the blue shell, and the blue shell in this game is brutal. It's like King Boom Boom, but instead of just attacking first place, he tosses like these 5 tornadoes in the way of everybody else that can hurt you. You have a shield that can defend you. You have a laser, right, which goes through a bunch of opponents. You have drill. You have a bomb. There's this one overpowered item called Slicer that I've grown to hate, and basically it's this giant slicer thing that detects you and then slices your car in half, and it basically just fucks you. It takes away your items, it slows you down. It's effectively the lightning bolt item in Mario Kart, but instead of just affecting everybody, it affects you. You have these weights that pull up from the sky and hurt you. You have you have a spike, and you have a magnet item that can screw people over. So with all that being said, that is a lot of items, and I'm happy there's a lot of items, you know, whether it's boost or all this stuff, but man, all this shit can hurt you constantly. And so I feel like they need to do one of 2 things. They either need to give you more invincibility frames after you've gotten hit, or they need to nerf some of these items. I think they need to nerf quite a few. For example, I would nerf how long the monster truck lasts, because the monster truck item effectively lets you go through everybody, right? And so that one should last a little less longer. The slicer item, right, that cuts your car in half, I feel like, okay, that's fine. That can screw people over. That's all right. But like, let me keep my item, because I'm already like feeling damage by getting my cart sliced in half and slowing down. And so you take my items away too, I feel like I have nothing, right? And so the drill power up works as bullet bill. That's fine. There's the laser item, which works as another boost through everybody. It just feels like there's a lot of ways that genuinely like can just hurt people, right? And obviously Mario Kart is all about hurting people, and kart racers are all about attacking your opponents to go forward. I'm not saying they need to diminish it, but I think they do need to add a few more invincibility frames, because there have been times where genuinely like 5 things hit me all at once. I'm like, all right. And it's not like just in Mario Kart where it happens once. Like, I feel like here it happens constantly. Like, you can get, you know, slimed by the ink thing, and that'll slow you down. Then you get hit by the weights, then you get sliced. Like, and it can happen so early on, or right when you're at the finish line. It's like, well, shit, dude. Like, it definitely feels like a lot. And like I said, I think the item variety is good. It's good to have item variety, because, you know, my biggest thing about Mario Kart is I wish there were more new item types. And so I'm happy there's a lot of item types in this game, right? Including how the modifiers affect which items you get. But just give me more ways to, you know, not have every single one of them hurt me. Right, you know, I have it so that I have more invincibility frames when I get hit, or that they last a little less longer. I feel like they definitely got to nerf the tornado item, because the tornado item not only stops you from getting hit, right, but like when you bump into someone, it hurts them too, which I feel like is just too much. You know, I feel like it's got to be one or the other. I guess they're going for sort of like that thing from Mario Kart where like the red shells hover you, and if someone touches you, it hurts you. But with how much you're bumping into people in this game, it can be brutal. Now, that being said, right, you combine the items with the tracks being 3 minutes long, and I noticed in a lot of races, I'm having a great time, but there have been so many moments where I am just in first, and then boom, everything is taken away in an instant. And I know that everybody says that's just getting Mario Karted, but in this game, it feels a lot worse. Like, I feel like this happens constantly, to the point where like a lot of races where I felt like I had it in the bag, suddenly it all felt over very quickly. And I feel like genuinely, if they just work on this and fix the item balance a little bit, please make sure you let them know in that survey. I think we're gonna get an overall much better product, because overall going through a racetrack has been fantastic. It's been fun. It's high stakes. When I get to play with friends, or the way I had to do it in this thing was queue up with them at the same time. Hopefully you can actually queue up with your friends on ranked. That'd be nice. It was so much fun yelling at each other, getting mad at each other about items. So overall, crazy shit. Also, the game has like unique interactive banter between the characters that happen, you know, every so often. I saw some clips of it, but they never spawned in for me. Now, I know in Team Sonic Racing, it was an issue where like the banter was like constant, nonstop, but I felt like here I genuinely like never got any of the character banter. So I'd like if they figured it out a way for at least for it to like be guaranteed to happen like maybe once a lap. Now let's talk a bit about the soundtrack, right? Overall, the soundtrack, I will tell you, it is not Team Sonic Racing. Team Sonic Racing is probably one of the best Sonic soundtracks that have ever existed. The songs were extremely bombastic and insane. And while I do think the tracks in this game are super great, they don't stick out as much as those Team Sonic Racing ones. But I will say one thing this game does is there's chanting. Right, so when you start a race, there's chanting. When you get to like the third lap, you'll have like a crowd chanting. I don't know what they're saying, but they're chanting really nice things, and it's satisfying to me. I like the idea that there's a stadium of people yelling, getting excited, chanting, and all that stuff. Like, that shit makes me happy and gets me excited. But I want the soundtrack to be a little bit more bombastic. Maybe they're saving the best songs for the base game, because it's funny enough, the best songs in the game were the ones from Team Sonic Racing when you went into a crossroad. Funny enough, there was that. I really did like the Wonder Museum song. That one stood out to me, and I even think, you know, obviously Ocean View is really good because it uses Toot Toot Sonic Warrior, which is really cool. But the other tracks, I mean, I can't tell you what the East Stadium song is, and I played that track probably a billion times. So I think they need to work on maybe making the OST a little bit louder, right? A little bit more crazier, and just having things stick out a bit more. So overall thoughts on Sonic Racing CrossWorlds. Man, right away, I am in love with this game. I think this, like I said, is the most fun I've had with a kart racer since the launch of Mario Kart 8. I think it's the most fun I've had, like, just in a long time with one of these games, where I didn't want to stop playing. I kept saying, one more. And that's because everything about playing it feels so satisfying. Drifting feels satisfying. The character animations feels satisfying. The UI, the colors, the flow of the level, like winning a race feels good. Even getting to the finish lap with all like the fireworks going up, the boost panels, like it feels like you are genuinely like a champion when you're playing it, and it feels so good to learn, right? And genuinely my biggest criticism with the game is please just balance and fix the items a little bit, because I think if you did that and you made it so that, you know, first place felt like they really earned it and didn't just, you know, die for being in first place, I feel like we're gonna end up with something really crazy here. Because, and that's the thing, right? A lot of people compare this to Mario Kart and everything. I think this is gonna stand out right next to Mario Kart. Remember, Mario Kart at the end of the day is exclusive to Switch. You know, people that are on PC, PlayStation, Xbox, and you know, are not gonna have access to Mario Kart. So it's gonna be nice to have a game like this. This is, unironically, this playtest is the most I've ever seen people talk about a Sonic racing game in forever. And so I assume we're probably gonna get a few more. Remember, we don't even have extreme gear yet, right? Like we are just at the beginning of this game. We don't have all the tracks, we don't have all the characters, we don't have extreme gear yet, and I'm having this much fun. I cannot imagine how much customizability, how much fun, how many car options there's gonna be, how good it's gonna be to level up overall through that. And one thing about the game that I want to talk about too as we end up at the wrap-up point of this is the ranking system. So when you go online, you have a ranking system. It's like E, D, C, B, A, and then Legend, right? And that's your basic ranking system. I think it needs a bit more tweaking. So basically what ends up happening is you kind of fly through ranks, you know, E and D, right? A little bit of C where you're getting a lot of points for playing it. Once you hit B rank though, I feel like you hit that ceiling really quickly, where unless you are getting first or second place like in a lot of races, you are barely getting points to level up. And I feel like it's not fun when I feel like you're barely inching to level up towards something. So what I would recommend for the developers and the team is like, do it so that you have, you know, E, D, C, B, A, have an S, and then have Legend. Because I feel like having B be like the sudden like gap where like leveling up or getting up higher ranks is difficult can be a bit jarring, and maybe be nicer about the points. Because I don't know, I feel like even getting 5th or 6th place, like you get like 3 points, it just feels like, all right, well, I'm not moving at all, this is gonna take forever. And that when you feel like something is gonna take forever to rank you up, it's not satisfying. Or even honestly, if you get in first place, give them like way more points, or give me points for at least getting like top 3 in like 2 races in a row. Give me that kind of bonus. I think stuff like that would mitigate and help. I obviously understand they want it to be so that you're not getting to legend rank day 1, but that's why I think add an extra ranking and just balance the point system a bit more. And those are my thoughts on the Sonic CrossWorlds Network. Sorry if I yapped a lot. I just had a lot to say about the game, and I'm sure you guys wanted to hear a lot about it because it's exciting, man. It's exciting to have a racing game this well made and this polished and this exciting in such a long time, especially in a year where we are getting a game like Mario Kart where it felt like things are stacked against it. I think I can safely say that these two games are going to coexist and be very fun in their own different ways. I want to play the shit out of this. So guys, thank you all for watching. Let me know what you guys think. And of course, let's stay tuned here for more. Subscribe to your boy. And of course, I will see you all next time. Peace out.